All these people were telling me, you're the best in the world. You're the hottest thing out there right now. And I didn't work for 6 months.
You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 57, part 2. This podcast is dedicated to Circus. Circus with the death-defying acts and spectacles of great beauty. But in this day and age, circus is more than tents and trains and elephants. And this podcast is here to introduce you to the modern art form by interviewing professionals in the industry, asking them to share their stories, viewpoints, and information. Hey friends, fans, and enemies. I'm Shannon McKenna. I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. This week's episode is the second part of my interview with Aerialist, producer, and circus director Joseph Pinzon. So if you're just tuning in now, first of all, hi, thanks for tuning in. Go back and listen to episode 57, part 1, and then come back to this episode. This isn't normally how the podcast works, but Joe had so much information that I hit record and let him talk and got almost 2 hours of conversation to work with. In this episode, Joe talks about the reality of the circus market for individual artists and creators. He shares personal stories that highlight some hard truths about the industry surrounding race and privilege. And also maybe there's a little bit of shade regarding how to get a job with Cirque du Soleil. Also, we mention a ton of artists in this interview, 2 of whom have actually been guests on the podcast before. They are Laura Stokes, who I interviewed in episode 11, and the other is Anke van Engelshoven, who was on episode 13. So if you want to go back and listen to those at some point, you can do that. The other circus companies, including Still Hungry, Back Pocket, and Cirque Le Roux, and the individual artist we mention, are all listed in the show notes with links to their websites, Facebook pages, YouTube acts, so you can go check them out. I know a lot of you tune in because you found me doing some aerial silks on Instagram, and maybe you're not professional artists yourselves, but the art form you're learning is part of a large community of creators, and their work can totally inspire you no matter what your level. And now you can know where to access it. It's an absolute honor to serve as a platform for these companies and artists and introduce the work that I fangirl over with all of you. So let's get to it. I scripted this and I wrote, let's get to it, shall we? Even though I don't say shall ever in real life because I'm not an 1800s damsel in distress. But anyway, when we last left our heroes, we were talking about mental health and meditating and the culture surrounding being quote unquote busy and how it relates to circus artists. So here's part 2 of my interview with Joseph Pinzon.
I get it though, because there's this glorification of busy that has been heralded in today's society, where if you're not busy, you're not being productive, you're not being successful, which I think is crap. Just because you're busy doesn't make you a more important person.
Yeah, and I think for circus artists, you could replace busy with training.
Yeah, which is also lame because you'll see out there are these artists who are fantastic technicians. They spend so much time getting stronger, learning the new tricks, and it's great. They're amazing to watch. But sometimes when they get on stage, you realize, oh, they have nothing to say. Or they don't know why they're up there. They're just kind of doing what they were training and nothing else, which is a shame because being on stage is a privilege, not a right. We fight to be up there because we have something to say, because we want to show people the world that we see. That if you don't take advantage of that opportunity, you're doing yourself such a disservice. And so you're never gonna okay, listen, this is gonna sound really bad, but a lot of people want to be the best in the world, right? You hear that a lot. I'm training because I want to be the best in the world. Well, yeah, but guess what? When you become the best, that's it. And then there's nowhere else but to go down. And sometimes when you're the best, you won't get what you think the best deserves. There was a time where I was coming out of circus school and, I made my silks act and I thought it was really nice. And so did a lot of other people. Like companies were talking to me about it and they were like, wow, it was really artistic. You had something to say and the technique is great, such great research. And it felt cool to hear that. And it was really nice. But I thought that after hearing all that, I was set. Like life is set for me. Everything that I work hard for, I just laid at the foundation. It's gonna roll out. And nothing did. Nothing did. All these people were telling me, you're the best in the world. You're the hottest thing out there right now. And I didn't work for 6 months. Whereas everyone else in my year had contracts. And I was the last one to score a contract.
But why? What happened?
A lot of it comes down to the market and what people hire. I've said this a lot this conversation, but it's really true. The world is different now than it was back then. In 2005, there was less of an awareness of things like privilege and inherent racism and prejudice that people didn't talk about back then because they didn't think it was a problem. But I was unhireable in a lot of people's eyes because I was I was a queer Asian male who did aerial silks. Nobody knew what to do with that. It didn't matter that I was great or really good or whatever, and that I had a lot of things to say. Nobody could easily envision putting something like that on a stage and having people appreciate that so much that they're willing to buy a ticket.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking.
But that's what happened, of course, I fought my way through it. And because of that, I had to make my own market and carve out my own niche. And that's not easy either because that takes a lot of a personal investment. But that's why I saw so many friends of mine zoom ahead of me because they're so much more marketable. And, you have what you have. And of course, I resented that because, it prevented me from scoring a contract as easily as everyone else did. And the worst thing you could do for yourself is compare yourself to everyone else around you. But it's also the easiest thing to do because it's right there. And, even to this day, I compare myself to people and I don't want to, but it just happens. I have to learn how to not. But back then, it's all that I saw. So it was really difficult. Like when I said the first contract I scored was a Cirque du Soleil cruise ship. It really was the first thing I scored because all my other friends went to these big old companies and got these great jobs. And this is what was offered to me 6 months after the fact. And I took it because it's a great company to work for. The name alone, I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do it. But like I told you, I work 2 times a month. But like I said, the world is different now where eyes have been open and people are saying things nowadays and calling out the system and wanting to make some change. It's funny because even in the circus industry, that change is happening, but at a much slower pace because we just don't have the exposure. We also don't have the people saying the things because, when you look at the industry, let's face it, it's really white. It all comes down to, well, who has access to that education, who can afford it, who even knows that kind of education is out there. And it's what it is. Is it good? Obviously not. But luckily, the circus world is becoming more and more aware of it and I'm trying to make some differences. Now, it's hard because even I get called out on it with filament. When we were in Australia, somebody said, hey, your show's really white. And I'm like, we're in Adelaide, Australia. All the shows here are really white. Why are you telling me? And I'm like, oh, are you telling me because I look like this? And because of that, I have a responsibility of some sort. And like this person didn't really know what to say. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what it is. And I kind of was really resentful towards that. But after a while, I was like, you know what? I do have this platform, just like I said before. The stage is a privilege, not a right. I have this platform. Why am I not taking advantage of it? So I have made a more conscious effort to look for artists of color or artists of different looks. Yes, I'm kind of trapped because I have really specific roles in my show that have to adhere to certain characteristics, but that doesn't mean color a lot of the time. It doesn't mean size a lot of the time. And so I'm actively looking for artists who have the caliber that I need, who can potentially fit these roles that I have in front of me. Sucks because one of the criteria is that you have to look young, you know, like because they are teenage roles. But there's no reason why I can't have a robust African American female hula hooper. Like, please come around, you know, like if you are out there, please.
Shortroundproductions.com. Send in your resume.
Yeah. Oh, the funny thing is though, like I'll get submissions, but like some of the disciplines have absolutely no place in the show. But I mean, people submit anyway, which is great. I mean, hey, good on you for taking a shot. But I'm like, we don't have roller bolo in the show, so I'm not gonna put it in. But it doesn't mean I won't look at them. I'll definitely look. But besides the fact, I really I don't want to discourage people that are listening to this from going for it, because I could have easily been discouraged, and to be honest, I was. But at the end of the day, I'm like, man, I put so much work into this. I'm just going to keep pushing ahead. And, it's not an easy thing to do what we do physically or mentally or emotionally, but we do it because we love it. And if you know that, if that drives you, then by all means, keep going. And I wish you the best, And
I think what's so interesting about you, Joe, is like, you're talking about how little work and how discouraged you were. And yet it's not. I mean, of course, there are people who are getting, 40s who are still working, but not very many.
No, not very many. I mean, I'm 39 now. I'm going to be 40 in a couple months. And I mean, honestly, I'm really looking forward to it. Because I have Filament and Short Round Productions, everyone has automatically assumed that I don't perform anymore. It's really strange. And I never said I stopped. I think it's just because I haven't been performing because I had to spend so much time running this company. But I'm still able to do everything that I've done before. Like, none of those skills have gone away. I mean, maybe I'm a little less flexible, but I still have my splits. My back's okay. My shoulders are fine. My strength is still there. But I mean, let's face it, circus is a young person's market. Everyone's always like, who's the new one out there? Who's the young thing? We are like, who's going to the festival? Who's graduating from the schools? I mean, I'll admit it. That's what I do because I have to cast these people. And then people keep going and then they keep doing their act. And before, people would have their legacy act, where they're known for that 5 minutes and they do that for the rest of their life. Again, that's not how the world works anymore. People invest into doing different disciplines. They make several versions of different acts out there. They market themselves differently. So having a long career is very possible nowadays. But the attention still goes on the young ones because it's just like any other show business. We always want the fresh, new, young thing because that's what we feel keeps the art form alive.
What do you think the implications of that are for the art form, though? Like I was on the Demand website the other day just looking at the selection and everything for the year.
Which is vastly different from before.
I know.
Have you noticed the large amount of female candidates on there?
I'm super happy about it.
Like, finally, right?
Yeah. Laura Stokes is going, who I'm like
Laura
so
Stokes!
excited for.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for her.
Oh, and I congratulated her. And she's like, who would have thought me in my late 30s never been selected? She's like, I didn't even think about it. And there I am. There they are calling me. I'm like, oh, man, you never know then.
It's crazy. But one of the questions that it gets asked is like, why are there not more troops? It's because, there's no more Soviet bloc or like state-funded circus except for in China, and I think China's it now.
North Korea.
Oh, yeah. Well. Also, like when you have a legacy act or you have something and you've trained your whole life to do it, like those acts look very different and the level of the acts are really different than people who are constantly changing disciplines or trying to like fit to, be a hair hanger this year, be a rope artist this year.
Oh my God, hair hangers. Circus is expensive. Let's put that out there. It is not.
Let's title the episode "Circus is Expensive."
Oh my God! Like I have talked about this to a lot of friends of mine, and I tell them, I'm like, that like achieving your dreams is not all it's cracked up to be because it's really expensive. And then they're like, you should write a book called Dreams Are Expensive. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
People are like, that's a great title. I'm like, okay, so don't steal it. But I mean, it's true. Dreams are expensive, and particularly circus dreams are very expensive. Like, let's just call it what it is. And is it easy? No, it's not easy. And that's why there are no troops anymore. That's why you don't even see like trios and duos, because guess what? If you're trying to like shell out a duo or trio act to get hired, that money gets split 2 or 3 ways.
Yeah.
And that sucks, you know? Especially if both people think they put in just as hard amount of work as a solo act, yet they're getting less because they have to split it. That's the reality of the situation, which is why you see a lot of them have the duo, and then each partner has their own solo act, because then it becomes a package deal, which is a very economical thing to do. It's harder as well because sometimes those disciplines aren't different enough from what they do, but they're there. So, you do what you can. You try to find your own way. It helps to not only approach it from a, oh my God, I just want to do circus dream kind of like mentality, to also like, how am I going to make this a viable career kind of fantasy?
Yeah.
How am I actually going to make some kind of money out of this and not like live paycheck to paycheck and try to book myself 4 years out in advance? That's marketing. That's business savvy. That's looking at what's out there and either making your own place, or, I mean, what some people do is like model themselves after someone else to be their replacement. Let's call that out, because that's happening too.
I know. I was just about to say, I don't think people talk about that enough, where it's like, how do I get on Cirque du Soleil? It's like, well, figure out which act you want to do.
Oh, copycats. Oh my God, there was somebody, I forget who it was, but there was somebody who put out a bunch of, or not a bunch of, but some YouTube videos out there about how to get into Cirque du Soleil. And it's like, look at their shows, find the act you think you could do, learn it, and then send it to them. What's kind of shady about all of that is that it's also not wrong, especially if you physically fit the role. Because this is what a lot of people don't talk about either. Costumes are expensive. So some companies would rather find an artist who fits the costume. And that's the criteria. It's all about, do you fit this dress that we spent $20,000 on? Because we're not going to make another one. It's insane, but this is the reality, right? Yeah. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's what it is. Now, your reaction to that kind of news will depend on how far you go. Like, that's what's going to determine it. Because guess what? That's not going to change, Because look, a company like Dragon or Cirque du Soleil, they could spend tens of thousands of dollars on a costume piece. They're not going to make another one. They're making it for that one person who's in the creation. But they also know that whoever they get to replace that needs to have those proportions. And there's enough people out there who have that proportions with a level that they can work with. And that's fine, because that's what they're doing. They're making spectacle. And that's great, because they can. Thank God they can. It's inspiring to see that kind of spectacle out there. Like, how many times have you seen a show when you're like, that costume blows my damn mind? Well, guess what? The costume costs $20,000. It also made you feel that way, and they know it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. Does it come at a price? Of course it does. But they know that that's the price they got to pay when making a move like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have that luxury. Us smaller companies, we don't have that luxury. Like with Filament, I'm lucky because all the costumes in the show are bought from the mall. And if we have a new circus artist come in and
H&M is one of the best costume designers around. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, and like, for example, we had to do an emergency replacement for the European tour, and the artist that we got was not the same size as the artist she was replacing. And that's just how life is, right? Yeah. But I spent an entire afternoon scouring the Alexa Mall in Berlin. I went to H&M. I went to Tommy Hilfiger. I went to Esprit. And I bought the things that fit her the best, but also looked similar enough to what was already in the show. And it worked. That's where I'm at. That's the model that I have to use for the budget that I have. And that's okay. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Dream for you, Joe, of going farther?
There is. I mean, I have a second show that I would like to get off the ground. Enough people have heard about the concept to know that it's out there in the universe. And they even said, oh my God, I want to see that. But that's really encouraging for me to pursue it. I won't talk about more.
What's the concept? Because I remember you talking in Berlin like a long time ago about like having like Lena and a bunch of like, it's weird to call Lena an older circus artist.
That concept got scrapped because they created Raven. You know what? Thank God they did. I could not have done that kind of show justice because I don't have that perspective.
It's not your voice. Yeah.
It's not my voice. And so I would have done it a huge disservice. So thank God that those three extraordinary women created that. I love that it's out there in the world. You could put that in there that I talked about Raven. Please talk like edit it.
Raven. Yeah.
Yeah. Raven. I love them so much, and I'm so happy and proud for all the
Anke van Engelshoven was on the episode. Oh fuck! I don't know the episode, but
you'll find it.
I'll find it and I'll shout it out.
So like Lena Reese, Anke van Engelshoven, and Romy Zeipt are queens, and I love them, and they deserve all the good things. And so they made that show, and I can't do that anymore, which is great because I shouldn't have.
Hey, friends, fans, and enemies. Shannon here from the future. I'm dropping in because I cut out part of the interview to protect information about the plot of Joe's newest show, but it sounds really cool and maybe I'll get to share it with you all one day. But we're going to pick back up when Joe starts talking about what inspired him to write his new show.
I wrote it shortly after my dad passed, and it was really kind of what helped me not get through it, but help me deal. So it means a lot to me to be able to put this on a stage because I know that it could mean something to a lot of other people out there. Life has a path for you, whether you like it or not. You could plan everything and have the career you want and go for your goals and your dreams or whatever. But life is still going to be there, and it's going to steer you in the way that it needs to. And so there's going to be curveballs thrown at you, which inherently might derail everything that you've worked for. What it means is that life is life. And who are we to think we could have controlled it all, you know? We could do all we can, we could do all we want, but in the end, it works out the way it needs to, and not necessarily the way you want it to. And so when things like loss happen, or even birth, or financial shifts, you know, you deal with it because that's what being alive is. It's not the success and accolades of having this amazing career. It's all about how you deal with all of that. Because we're not better than a lot of people out there. We're circus performers, yeah, but we're still humans, you know? We're not superhuman. I know we like to joke that we are, that we're kind of like the X-Men when each of us has our power or whatever. We're still human beings. We still go through things. Things still hurt. Life still sucks sometimes. But that in itself should be a comfort to ourselves in knowing that we should take some of that pressure off of ourselves to be extraordinary. And being just yourself and doing something for yourself and doing something good, that could be enough. Well, because sometimes we feel pressured to be the best, to go to ENC or to get into the festival so that I can get this career so my price could be higher. Of course, we all think that. We're not all going to get that. Let's face it. Some of us will, some of us won't. Now, how you deal with that is what's going to define your career. How you deal with all of the bad news, that's what's going to define your career. Because there are people out there who have amazing careers, who might not be the most technically skilled person out there, who might not be the most artistically expressive person out there, but they have long, thriving careers that they're happy with because they decided to be happy with it. And that's a fact of life. It doesn't just translate to, it doesn't just relate to us in the circus world. It relates to dancers. It relates to lawyers, to doctors, to politicians, to even parenting styles. We kind of just got to do what we can with the best that's handed to us and decide to be happy with it or not. And if you're not happy with it, do what you can to make sure that you are, because none of this is worth it if you're not happy with it. It took me this long, almost 40, to realize that I don't think I'm done performing yet. I have so much more to say now than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I was an idiot. We're all idiots when we're younger.
I feel like
Like
that's such a
sometimes,
tragedy in like for dancers and circus artists and like our like movement based artists. Like with writers or painters, you know, like as you evolve as a person, your craft can evolve. But like the
yeah.
people who are at the like quote unquote top of their game are
Mhm.
generally not the ones who can have the depth of experience to really explore.
We put value on specific things. Who can do the triple? Who can do that the fastest? Who could do it the slowest? Like things like that. Of course, that's how we measure. Those are our metrics for success, oddly. But, as time goes on, every one of us realizes, oh my God, I can't anymore. Like, oh
For
my
sure.
God, doing that hurts. I can't anymore. And then you decide not to do that anymore. And then it's fine. Like a great example that I look at is, I really looked up to those four contortionists from Nouvelle Experience. The infamous quartet. I think maybe only one of them still backbends. And you know what? All four of them still phenomenal artists. And they express themselves in different ways now. And you know what? Thank God, because it's beautiful what they do. It's actually really beautiful to see what they've become because they're not just that anymore. They're so much more. And as maybe it's because I'm older that I appreciate that side of things now. Because, when I was younger, man, when I was like, 23, I'm like, anyone who was 30 was way too old and should get out of the business and get out of the way for the young ones. That's what I thought. And, of course, I was a little jerk thinking that because now I'm almost 40.
Well, totally. But like you said, like the market also kind of reinforces that thought process.
It does. It does. It does. But also, why aren't we celebrating older performers? Because those of us who can take the reins now, we have that opportunity. Like when I look at my graduating class of 2005, and a lot of them are in some of the most amazing positions within the industry. They can make some decisions which could turn a tide if we decided to, because we are in those roles of authority now. And thank God we are, because finally people with circus backgrounds can call shots and not choreographers or theater directors who have never done what we've done. It's not to say that they're not visionaries, but they've never done what we've done. And it takes that kind of knowledge to really tap into making what we do better. And so finally, the generation is at the point where we can really drive it in a direction that can make it different and make it something we've never seen before. And thank God we finally can.
That's such a cool perspective.
Like I made my show, and I like I said, I'm really thankful it's been received well. Like it does have a commercial edge to it, but hey, guess what? That's what I wanted to create. And if you're gonna like knock me for it, then that's you.
But it
I don't
does
care.
seem like this is the trend, or like what I see in circus now is like it's a lot of smaller companies kind of adopting a more modern take on like the traveling show, where it's not installation, like you have your shows, yes, in Vegas, but the current environment seems to be like the most exciting work is not at the Bellagio. The exciting work is being done in little towns or in these little tours with really accomplished artists who are taking their own work on the road.
Yeah, and it could be really avant-garde, or it could be super family-oriented, or
Mm-hmm.
it could have a pop edge to it, or be a Cirque du Soleil style kind of show. We can do anything. We have those options, but it's up to us to decide what we want to do. And you know what? We should really be happy that all of that's out there. Like sometimes I gotta check myself because, we all got our tastes, right? We can like stuff, we could not like stuff, and we're allowed to, but we should be also thankful that we have those kinds of options now. We should be very happy that there's so many different types of contemporary circus out there that exist because we're not relegated to just like one style. We can like what we want because so much stuff is being made, and thank God there is. We're so lucky to be able to pick and choose what we like, but what we should do is still respect the work even if we don't like it. Because at least that kind of work is out there and it's being made and it's perpetuating our artistic culture. Like, thank God.
Other companies you want to shout out? I mean, we talked about Still Hungry and their show Raven.
I love Still Hungry. I'm a fan of Back Pocket. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge fan of Cirque du Soleil. They're the ones who did Elephant in the Room, and they now have Deer in Headlights. Oh my God!
The trailer I actually looked unreal. It was beautiful.
Oh my God! It makes me feel so dumb. They're so good. I actually got a notification on Facebook. I got a badge saying that I'm one of their top fans. And you know what? I was like, yeah, I am. Like, I'm such a fan of them.
How did you get a badge for that? What does
I think I just like all their stuff, like a psychic person.
That's awesome.
No, there are people putting stuff out there and they're not even collectives. There are duos. Like, for instance, Natalie and Joachim, they won Young Stage. They're a rope duo. And a rope duo moving at this really slow meditative pace won gold. Like, that says something, you know? It says that you don't have to do the triple. It says that you don't have to make this crazy ass new thing. You could do something really well, and that means something to you, and people will recognize it. I think that's important for a lot of people to know. You don't have to be like the most innovative or the most technically advanced. Sometimes you just got to be authentic and you just got to be good. That's great. Like, I also, like, this is an example that I always think about. I was so fortunate to be in the audience when Duo Scarlett did their very first performance. Duo Scarlett, they happened in the mid-aughts, so about 2005. It was a duo of Annie Kim, Derry, and Marie-Ève Aymon. They put together this aerial square act with 4 chains on each corner at a point. And so it's like a frame. 2 beautiful women doing this act of all the technique they knew and just such beautiful choreography. It premiered at the Tohu in the showcase, and they literally stopped the show. The entire audience was on their feet applauding for them. They stopped the show dead in its track because that act was so good and very simple. You know, they weren't doing like crazy double back tucks and catching each other by their toes or whatever. It was just so well done that it hit you that, oh my God, this is good. And I think when us as circus artists have those points in our lives where we can think of an act or think of a show that makes us remember how we feel and makes us be like, oh yeah, now I remember why I still do this, or I remember why I want to do this. It drives everything. You know, like, people ask me a lot, you know, what made you want to do circus? And I'll tell them it was Quidam in 1996. You know, I was doing musical theater as a kid, and then, you know, I knew about Cirque du Soleil. I saw it live, and I was like, I didn't know that something like that could exist. You know, it was so different than their previous shows. It was darker. It explored really like heavy themes. And as a 16-year-old, I was like, this is art that is talking to me in a way no other art has, and I got to explore this. And each of us can have our things. And I know that for a lot of people, it was Quidam. For a lot of people, it was Traces. And things are changing now. For some people, it's other shows out there, like Dummy is one. Dummy has an effect on people, man.
Yeah. But it's just funny. It's crazy to think that, like, that's some people's Quidam. I don't know. I think about this with pop stars, too, sometimes, where I'm like, oh my God, like, some people, Christina Aguilera is some people's Madonna.
Yeah, the show that's becoming the next one, that I see becoming the next one, is Backbone. Simple Space, I really enjoy. Like, they do good work, you know, like, it's very strong acrobatics. And because that show has such a great outreach, you know, a lot more people can see it, thank God, because it's a good show. You know, they should be exposed to that. Like, if for some people that is the first circus show they're seeing, what a great first circus show to see. That'll be some people's Traces, or some people's Quidam, or whatever, you know. Or it could be an act that people saw, like, you know, like that Russian swing, all-female Russian swing troupe from Russia. Oh my God. I
saw them in Demand that year, and I was like, that. I just want that.
We need stuff like that where it hits people to say, this is why. Okay, now I get it. And that's all that we should be trying to do. We don't necessarily have to be the best, but we have to be good. And a lot of that comes from believing in what we do. I'm so thankful I did my master's program because it made me realize, oh, I just have to believe in what I believe in. and people will believe in that. And my professor was like, well, yeah, that's how anyone gets to where they are. They just have that conviction. But not only that, there's some evidence there. There has to be. Anyone can talk big game, but if it's a flop, it's a flop. Let's call it out. But if you can prove to other people that you're not wrong, or that, look, no, I trust me, I'm going to do this and you're going to see. And people are like, okay, oh yeah, fine, sure. And then you do it. Oh, well, there you go. Just believe. I mean, yes, dreams are expensive, but also...
Then your follow-up book will be like, and just believe.
Well, I mean, it's part of that book. Yeah, dreams are expensive, but also expensive dreams can have big payouts. They're not necessarily financial sometimes, and sometimes they are. Let's call that out. Sometimes they are for certain people. But there is a reward, and that's what art does. It hits us, and it makes us see the world in a different way that we didn't know we could see it in. And it inspires us to help others see the world, not necessarily in that way, but for themselves. It's a lot bigger than what we think it is. And once we know that, oh man, that's kind of sometimes all you need.
Joe, it was so good. Thank you so much for talking.
Thank you for allowing me to talk. I mean, it's anytime that I can have the opportunity to let people know certain things that sometimes people aren't talking about but should, I like to, because like, yeah, we always hear this where I wish someone told me this, or I wish I knew this when I was growing up. Well, there are people out there who can tell you these things. I know some of them, the people and the things. So, but yeah, I just want people to know, like, man, just be good, believe in something, and like work hard and believe that something can happen. It might be expensive, but it might be great.
All right. Well, thanks. And next time I'm in LA or when you're in Montreal, we'll see each other eventually.
We'll see each other. That's how the circus world works, isn't it?
Always.
Thank you so much for talking to me. It's so nice to catch up with you.
Yeah, for sure. You too. Take care.
Bye.
That was my interview with Joseph Pinzon. And what an interview that was. Oh man, friends, fans, and enemies. How you feeling? To start to wrap this episode up, I want to share a message I got from someone on Instagram like the day after I interviewed Joe. This person, whose Insta handle is almighty_M, slid into my DMs and she wrote, I'm assuming you're a she, they wrote, "Hi, I recently got into your podcast and have been loving it. Thanks. Something I and many of my aerial friends would like to know is how the ever-loving fuck do people pay for professional circus programs? The only people I know that have been able to attend such programs," and then whoever lists some programs, were funded by their parents. If you could find an artist with insight into how to both afford life and push their training and career beyond the easy, my aerial sisters and brothers would be eternally grateful. Heart emoji, almighty_M. Well, here's the truth, almighty_M. Not from me, but from Joe. But also kind of from me. Circus is expensive. It's a lot of hard work. It's labor intensive. It's hard on your body. It's hard on your relationships. And after all the ibuprofen and tears and money spent and love lost, there's no guarantee of the outcome of success in the way you may have pictured it. For my own case, I never in a million years thought that I would be running a podcast about circus artists or running a company dedicated to producing educational material for Aerialist. But I needed to start all of this because I got to a point where I could not support myself anymore on performing and teaching alone. I have no parental support. I mean, they're much more emotionally supportive than they were when I started this 10 years ago, but I've had no financial support and have had to do this all by myself. And I loved the part in the interview where Joe talks about he comes out of this highly regarded circus institution. He's created this fabulous act. People are calling him the best in the world. He's gotten all this great feedback about his artistry, and then he just doesn't get hired. And he said, sometimes when you're the best, you don't get what you think the best deserves. And it's because it doesn't, at the end of the day, after all that money that you've spent on your technical training and your costumes and your PR and going all around the world meeting producers, there are other forces at play that are out of our control. There's the market, there's time, there's demand, there's the question of, do you fit into a $20,000 costumes? And all of these factors will play into the trajectory of your career. But what Joe says, and I love that he said this, is at the end of the day, what you have control over is what you choose to do with that information. Because even after all of that, there are those of us who truly love this art form, and we find ways to pay for training and resources that help us achieve our goals. And we show up when we're sore and we're tired and we're heartbroken, and we create something in the face of great hardship. And we do this because we have something to say and a passion for saying it through Circus. And maybe I'm insane for saying this, and I'm lying on a mat and I'm super sore and it's 11 o'clock at night and I just got back from a pretty intense training session, but I would not have my life any other way. And it is totally worth every sacrifice I've made. So good luck to you, Almighty M, and the rest of you out there. If you want to support this podcast directly so I can continue my passion for sharing it with all of you, please go to www.patreon.com/theartistathlete. If you want to contact me with questions, feedback, information, I'm on Instagram at @the_artist_athlete. And I'm online, www.theartistathlete.com. And there's a Facebook page, but I never go on that, but it's The Artist Athlete. To find Joe online, you can go to josephpinzon.com. On Instagram, he is at Joe_Pinzon, and his company is Short Round Productions, which you can follow. Instagram is at Short Round Prods, or online, shortroundproductions.com. Thanks for tuning in, friends, fans, and enemies. Talk at you next week. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Aloha! My name is Beth Russell, and I live on the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. I am an aerial artist and movement instructor specializing in chakra yoga to keep me balanced and grounded. I play with silks, trapeze, lyra, rope, acro, aerial yoga and dance, slacklining, pole, bungee, and climbing. Really anything that goes up and allows me to explore 3D space. You can find my dedicated aerial page on Instagram at Maui Aerialist. If you find yourself coming to Maui, let's play.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast. Straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space and we'd love to see you.
Hi, my name is Erica Lee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an aerialist. I teach performing arts to elementary school during the day and do pole and slings and rope by night. I really, really like the Artist Athlete podcast because it gives me a lot of circus goals to look forward to. It gives me a lot of insight on what's going on around the world in circus, and that's why I'm Patreon.
Hello, all. Thank you for tuning in to the Artist Athlete podcast. I am Opal Schwartz from Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're ever in the cities, feel free to stop by the Aviary Minneapolis. It's a great time. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and goodbye.